Our Warriors hashtag is community creates change, and Esther Valdes Clayton is doing just this. Esther is a dear friend, immigration attorney with Valdez and Associates, based out in San Diego, California. She's a frequent expert guest on many different media outlets, and she's an analyst on immigration policy. And if anybody can fill us in about what the heck is going on, the reality right now about our open United States borders and the effects on the American people and also the people coming here, the people Esther is working with. It is just a mess right now. But Esther is going to fill us all in. The hotspot right now happens to be, and Esther will fill us in about this one as well, San Diego, California. I want to know what's going on there because we're not really hearing much about San Diego. But please follow Esther on X. I still say Twitter at Esther_Valdes. That's Valdes. I'll have all of her information in the body of this video. Esther Valdes Clayton, welcome back to the Warriors.
Lynn, thank you so much for having me on and addressing this topic like a warrior.
You know what? I have missed you, and I'm like, a couple of days before the election, I'm going straight to Esther. I'm getting the reality about what is happening. Now, listen, it's been a minute for us, but we're going to jump right in. Give us your overall take right now about our open borders. What do you have to say?
So San Diego right now is ground zero for a lot of the border apprehensions, meaning that we have the biggest amount of border apprehensions, people trying to flood the border because they know what's going to happen on Tuesday. They're thinking Trump is going to get elected. This is my chance to immigrate unlawfully, to enter unlawfully under the Biden policies. I'll be released. I don't really have to pursue a court case because there's already 3 million cases in the immigration court docket. And I can join my family and start sending money home immediately. So currently there's a huge caravan of people. Some people estimate it to be around 100,000 people that are trying to go through Tapachula, Mexico, to come to the border before Trump takes office. And again, people politically through Colombia, through Central America, through South America are watching what happens because they understand it better than most Americans. If Trump wins, there will be border enforcement, law enforcement. It will be rigid. It will be secure. There will be deportations. And people don't want that. They're coming here for a better economic life, stronger opportunities. The statistics tell us 84% of asylum cases, meaning everybody, 84% out of 100 people who come and say, I fear for my life, I fear going back to my country, 84% of them do not win because it's mostly economic. They're here for the money. Nothing crass about that. They're trying to feed their family and their little ones, but that's the reality. But that's not what asylum's supposed to do. And the other 16 have valid claims. And as an attorney, I've been practicing in this area since 2003 through 4 administrations. I know what a good asylum claim looks like. What we're seeing right now, if the American economy is doing poorly with inflation and the average American consumer can't afford it, imagine what it's like trying to feed your family in Guatemala, in Honduras. They can't. So that's why they're coming. They're taking advantage of this time to come to the border, come to America before, and then just hide in the communities and never leave. That's the end game, never to leave.
I mean, it is so shocking because Esther, and you and me would probably come here. We would come here for a better life for children and that sort of thing. I feel I'm sitting in the middle of New York City. I was telling you earlier, I see these women on the streets with these little kids. I've seen women standing on corners here in New York crying. A woman one day held her baby out to me. She was sitting on the sidewalk and she said to me in Spanish, take my baby. And I know that they are leaving these family hotels. The cartels still have holds on them. We work with law enforcement as well at the Warriors, and they're forcing these women into prostitution. And it started getting picked up now with the New York Post, and they've been doing some sweeps, the NYPD. But this is horrible what's going on. I'm very curious, clients of yours that have come here and are going through all these rigors of coming here correctly and doing everything right. What do they reveal to you about all this? Because I would be so angry if I was witnessing all of this.
That's a great question. And a lot of the media never wants to talk about the dissension within communities. there's a lot of fighting here. And I'm of Mexican descent. My parents immigrated locally, and with my three sisters here to America in the late 70s. I was born here in the United States. Because we share with Mexico, the largest amount of immigrants in the United States are Mexican. They've been here the longest. They have their children in the military. They've worked for decades without work permits, without Social Security, and never a protest, never a complaint. They're just hardworking here in California, Arizona, Colorado, Texas, Nebraska. They dominate industries like agriculture, construction, restaurant, hotel workers. I know it's a different demographic in New York. That's why I'm explaining to you the anger Mexican immigrants are feeling and why their sons and daughters are voting for Donald Trump, because they're saying, how can it be that under Biden, a recent arrival from Colombia, from Haiti, from Cuba, yes, they're Latino, but I've been here decades and I don't have I don't have a work permit, and Joe Biden gives it all to them. Cell phones, they can deliver DoorDash right now. They have motorcycles. Imagine never being able to drive, vote, have a valid Social Security. And that's the anger among Latino communities. There's a lot of dissent. The Mexican immigrants, most of them I represent, are from Mexico here along the border in San Diego. They're like, hey, I don't wish evil on anybody, but why don't I have a work permit yet? My son is serving in the military. My daughter is enlisted. So voting group, and a lot of people are we want to do what's right. We want to pay people their just due, their just wages. I think everybody in America right now is on board. It's like, if you don't commit a crime, if you don't have a felony, and most immigrants stay here, immigrate lawfully, you don't go home. Go back to where you came from. Do not commit crime, not young women, but what a lot of is migrating boyfriends. We never were raping women, 12-year-old girls, and testing women, stringing joggers. We were just here to work. It's a new wave of immigrant that we're seeing, and I don't have substantiated reports of what Trump says in his platform speeches that they're emptying prisons. A lot of people are coming in and they have a different level of violence and attitude towards women and young children that we haven't seen before. It's not the family man coming here from Mexico, sending money home to abuelita or supporting women and children. These are young men, and they're coming here for money, to take selfies, to have gold chains, and to be able to promote their lifestyle on Twitter. And they do that. I don't know why it's so hard to not apprehend them, not stop these criminal rings that operate on social media. Well, but the saving grace is the Biden-Harris administration protects them. They don't have to follow through with their asylum cases. All of them enter through. And as an immigrant attorney, I can tell you there's more than 3 million immigration cases on the docket. The judges are overworked. 200,000 of those cases have been dismissed, meaning the gentleman from Mauritania that recently shot at a Jewish worshiper in Chicago at a Jewish synagogue, he entered illegally through San Diego, asked for asylum, and he was released. He got a weapon, and then he ends up shooting somebody. He was clear. There was no criminal history. There were background checks that gave him a clean bill. So he was released to the community. So this is what we're looking at if Harris wins on Tuesday. But most people seem to not really be bothered by it. They're looking at other issues, namely the abortion issue. And I always counter with, okay, so if you are pro-abortion, you've got to be pro-immigration, because you'll never be able to replace that American worker that's being aborted until 18 years ago. We won't have a viable American worker. So you do have to depend on immigration. And if you want less immigration, you have to be less abortions and more pro-life. The more American children get to live, the less we depend on foreign labor.
You open up a can of worms with that one. I really have to say, Esther, I don't understand. I'm not kidding. I'm able to separate like It's about American security, like the border. I actually think the border should be the number one issue in this presidential election because of everything that comes from that, the crime, the national security, the burden on the healthcare system. The children that come here, we have reports from teachers across the US. The kids just show up in the back of classrooms. They don't have translators. They're not able to give them the services. I also told you, I've seen women here in New York City crying, literally holding like a baby or a small child, crying on a street corner. Oh, they're like lost. And so to me, this should be like at the forefront of everything going on. Why do you think, at least I'm experiencing, the public isn't, I mean, they are concerned, but I'm not seeing that concern like where people should be protesting in the streets. I mean, this is not fair to Americans, and it's really not fair to these people coming over here. These women I just described to you with these small children that I see crying and things like that. I don't understand. Why do you think the public isn't getting more involved in this issue?
It's a new normal. They've gotten used to it. Most American consumers, especially in California and New York, it's a high tax, high rate of living. Most people are at work. They're working two jobs. They're struggling to put food on the table. They're not listening and watching the news. They got used to it. They don't want to get branded as a racist for not wanting newcomers to achieve the American dream that maybe their forefathers got as well. They haven't been directly affected by the crime wave as well. They're just going about their. I think the dark part of all of this is the huge economic benefit to a lot of huge amounts of industries like agriculture, construction, the hospitality industry, the restaurant industry. That right now we have a restaurant apocalypse with so many closures and restaurants filing for bankruptcies. They depend on cheap labor. The amount of children that I represent that are 16, 17, their first job in America is dishwasher. They go to school because they're mandated here in this country to go to school. They weren't mandated back then, so that's a new requirement from their home country to here in the United States. They leave school at 3 o'clock, they catch the bus, and they're wiping tables. They're the bus boy, and they're getting tips, and they're happy with their little cash payment of $40 a night. That adds up. You send money home. You can pay rent for the couch. You can pay for some groceries, for the cup of noodles that they live off of. I mean, I see them. It's not the American dream, but politically speaking, it causes a disenfranchised class that's always going to be government dependent. And for me, as a person of Mexican descent, it's heartbreaking. I know they're being exploited, but it's good enough for them. And for the American consumer, sometimes we don't want to talk about it because we need the cheap produce, we need the cheap meat, we need the cheap poultry. Who's deboning the chicken in these chicken plants? It's small children with small fingers. It's women who have a sharp eye for delicate deboning processes. Who's up doing the plumbing and the construction worker without workers' comp insurance and without union jobs? It's the Mexican and Latino laborers, young men that if they break their back, oh well, their livelihood is gone for life. So it's a very complicated issue. I think most people, it's just overwhelming. Not to mention the 300,000 missing children. Not to mention the human trafficked children. The children that are being sexually exploited because it's more profitable than drugs to traffic fentanyl and cross it through the border. Here in San Diego, we have multiple amounts of seizures of cocaine and fentanyl and methamphetamine routinely. The Border Patrol reports on these. So instead of that, it's easier to smuggle a child that you can sell over and over, manipulate and exploit, and live stream it for pay. That's the sordid part of that hopefully it changes if Trump wins the White House. There's just so many issues, but I think as Americans, it comes down to one thing. Do you love the country and do you want to conserve it? And that's what we're up against. A lot of the people that want the open borders, they want to dismantle America. They don't like the way America looks with the nuclear family, the traditional wife, the white people with their generational wealth handing over houses, and the boomers. They want to dismantle it all, to start all over. It's a lot of class envy. I don't like to use the word communist, but a lot of it is that it's got to be dismantled to disperse the wealth, to spread the wealth the way they want, so that they get to be in power. We were talking a little bit off air about a lot of the groups that we belong to. I belong to those same groups that are like groups that are structured to help women, children who are impoverished. Why are the
Mhm.
people leading these groups so angry all the time?
Right.
They don't have this compassionate heart. Like you and I are collecting resources and Christmas time. I have holiday drives of donated backpacks. They don't really care about that.
Right.
It's about getting the person in so that they can have their little pyramid of power and have a title to, I'm a community leader, I'm the migrant leader, I'm the nonprofit leader, because
Yes.
they just want to lead, they want to have power and forget the person. And you and I are worried about, do they have tampons? Do they have diapers? Do they
Yes.
have clothes? Are they safe at their home? They don't. They're more worried about, good, you're in. Great. Where's the next flood coming in so I get more federal money? The Department of Homeland Security just released reports of how much money nonprofits are getting. The two largest nonprofits that got money for the migrant crisis this last year were here in San Diego: Jewish Family Services and Catholic Charities. And
Yes.
again, not speaking for all of them, they do a great humanitarian work, but a lot of it is very transactional. If millions of dollars are going to these organizations, why is it not trickling down to these people? Why are they on the street? Why are they asking for money? Why are they looking for their next cup of ramen to buy? Why don't they have money for diapers? Because a lot of it is going, and it's unaccounted for. It's for the labor. It's to pay the people who are working and filling up these office buildings, and that needs to stop. It needs to stop. When we stop that, when we stop the government handouts, we stop the trafficking, we stop the labor flow into the United States. The international economic, the International Bank also published a report just several months ago stating that inflation was in the United States was due to the large influx of
Yes.
migrants. You have more same goods, but not more good. Naturally, prices soar. So we're looking at that with housing here in California. We're looking at that through transportation, through food costs, but people don't want to talk about it because it's an election year, because, you can be deemed a racist. So, and honestly, I'm a little nerdy about this. So I follow the trends, and it does get to be very overwhelming for people. It's not that they care. It's just, you feel helpless. Like, wow, this problem's so huge. What do we do? And that's where Donald Trump comes in on his platform saying, we're going to mass deport people. I don't know how viable that is, because people are willing to be entrenched here. We have sanctuary cities and sanctuary states like California, where I live, that are not going to give them up. So I don't know what's going to happen when those impasses start happening.
But at least, Esther, if we could start, closing down the border, if we could at least, I'm told it's in excess of 500,000 unaccompanied minors when we add it all up that they know about. So it's not even accurate what is being reported. And nobody, and I keep saying every day, whether it's law enforcement or somebody who's working with an organization or somebody in the government, and what about those unaccompanied minors? And every single person says, well, we just don't know. I find that unacceptable if we're talking about 500,000, right? Where are these children? We know a lot of them are sex trafficked, labor trafficked. I think it's fair to say left and right both like cheap labor. You pointed out, you had some examples like, they like cheap
Mhm.
labor, but I'm very concerned. For instance, here in New York City, 75% of our hotels, Esther, are on government contracts to house illegals, which means the 25% left, the rooms are skyrocketing. The prices to stay in New York, which was expensive anyway to stay here, but 75%. And when I was told about this, I thought, no, that can't be. Okay, maybe like 30%, but it is indeed 75% of all hotel rooms because they get the guaranteed money and that's what they're taking, right? And so it's costing hundreds and hundreds of dollars a night per person. That money could be structured so differently, but I'm glad you pointed out For instance, NGOs working on the border, working all over, are making so much money, and it's always about money. And if we solve any of these problems, nobody makes the money. So that's it took me a long time. Somebody pointed out to me in law enforcement, they're like, Lynn, if we solve the problems, people don't make money. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Um, what are your thoughts about children with all of this? Because I was also telling you here in New York City, Trendy Aragua, this vicious, violent Venezuelan gang. See, I I'm not even, people are coming here. I'd come here also. If I had children, I want to make a living. We always heard America paved with gold. If somebody said the door's open, come on in, I know I'd come here too. But now the concern is national security. And we have this Trendy Aragua. I'm taken aback. And I've seen them actually in Times Square. These little kids that are supposed to be in school, I think, maybe 9, 10, 11,
Mhm.
12, running around like a gang of boys, not girls, boys, that are committing now. They're training them to commit these crimes. They're training them, these organized, go into a drugstore. If 10 of you go in at once, nobody's going to stop you. You're also a child. What are your, as an attorney, like, what are your, what are your thoughts on this? Because I mean, they're children and they're pointing out, well, you won't arrest children in New York City. But next thing we know, we'll have people getting murdered by 9-year-olds, right? Like, I don't know where this is all going. Do you hear anything about this? Is it happening? You're hearing in your area at all?
Yeah, so I've read the reports. Children are being trained to pickpocket because they know that they're going to be released. They're not going to be detained. They're not going to be imprisoned, and they're certainly not going to be deported. Sadly, not to sound desensitized to it, it's something that's happened in the past with every new large wave of immigrants that come to the United States. You tend to find these loopholes of ways to make money, cheap money, until you get stopped. And the way you get stopped is by the gringos stopping you. And I don't mean that despectively. I just mean that in the terminology that people say, until they get caught. It's going to keep going until somebody puts an end to it, whether it's Eric Adams, whether it's my mayor, whether it's a governor, whether it's the mayor working with the federal government. And it comes down to the Overton window is what people are willing
Right.
to accept as normal. If New Yorkers accept that as the new normal and, oh, well, it just comes with city life, that's what's it's going to look like. But if New Yorkers and San Diegans say, no, this is unacceptable to me. And the way we change that is by dialoguing and telling people, look, I don't want to walk down a street. I can't handle my city looking like a third world country where children are peddling their wares and girls are prostituting themselves. Like, enough is enough. And I love your organization so much because
Mm.
it's women led. And so every social change that we saw, like in the 1800s, the early 1900s, that stopped child labor, it came down to the women, all of us saying, enough. No, I'm not going to walk past that child getting raped, getting sold, this young woman getting sold. It comes down to us, and I'm not saying and don't participate. What I'm saying is that there needs to be anger where we'll change what's acceptable in America. But a lot of us, we vote with our pocketbook. We do want the cheap labor. We do want the gardener to be cheap. We want the house cleaner to be cheap. And it comes with a price. And that's why I'm a little bit more moderate than a lot of conservatives on this issue, because I see that we do have to legalize a large pool of the undocumented immigrant community that's been here 20, 25 years. They've served America well. They have their children in the military. They've never committed a crime. They've just
Right.
hunkered down and worked and never had a protest or a riot. I mean, when was the last time before Tren de Aragua that you heard about Mexican nationals going crazy on rampages? No, it just didn't happen.
Never.
So we need to also and give people hope. It's like, do it the right way. We will legalize you. Everybody else, you're committing a crime, nefarious deeds. Get the heck out. You beat a woman, get out. You hurt a child, get out. And we need to enforce that. And that needs to be spoken and it needs to be talked about. And people need to understand that there is a bright line here in America. But it's going to continue until we stop it. And we stop it
Yeah.
once we generate that buzz to where politicians find it acceptable to say, oh, well, I'm a Democrat and I need to stop this crime because the voters are upset about it now.
Yeah. Our mayor, Eric Adams, started speaking up and out, and we see what's happening to him these days. He's
Mhm.
Everybody around him has fallen off, resigned, indicted, something. He's hanging on, but he started saying our city cannot afford this anymore, even though he originally said, come here, we love you, we'll help you. Then he said, we don't have the room. We don't.
Yeah. Why
And
would he
so
say that? For the fact that the Black community is angry.
so
That's why
angry.
they are so angry.
So angry.
They're getting scammed by Skamala. She's telling them that immigrants help Black communities. The Black community is saying, like, wow, we've been asking for those same things that you've been handing out. Like, we're losing our gyms now. We're losing our community culture, our history, our values, because we're getting edged out. And because of their lower birth rates, it's true. And because of the higher Hispanic birth rates, it's true. All of those communities will eventually lose their heritage and lose their history. And that's why they're speaking out. And all of a sudden you see Eric Adams saying, well, we can't take it. We can't foot the bill anymore. Because people are upset.
Yeah, and you're right, because we at the Warriors, we work with the Black community, and they are angry, angry, angry. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. They've
No.
kind of just been used and pushed aside, and
Mhm.
they're
Yeah.
rising up. So let's hope they continue, rising up appropriately and speaking up and out. I'm kind of stuck on one thing you said, um, Kamala. Women do get the job done, Esther, in my opinion. Women are the nurturers, I would love to have a woman president. I really would, right? I'd love to see a woman in power. But this woman, I'm sorry. I don't understand with her staff, with her credits, with her, and she can't put a sentence together. It is very frightening for me because I know from the work we do in the last almost 4 years, she's had nothing to do to help sex trafficking and labor trafficking in America. And I'm very upset about that. I'm very upset that the good work of President Trump was undone on day one, the majority of it. I know many survivor leaders that were part of a commission in the White House. It's every year, they have a 2-year term. Half of them quit. And some of them are Democrats. Like, they quit because there was nothing being done. How can we turn this around? Obviously, having a new president and trying to get back on track, there's a million things to get back on track about. I don't understand, though. I know I keep telling you this, Esther. Like, you just have to look at the record of this woman. And it's not even for me about Donald Trump. It's about what is best for America. And that's what I don't understand that people can't look at, right? But we know that the sex trafficking, it's off the charts, has
Mhm.
increased something like 1,000% in an 18-month period. What we know about, we know all of the internet problems, the online, the gaming, the platforms. They're just running amok, and with the predation and all that. And there's nothing happening. We have something called Kids Online Safety Act. 3.5 years we've been working on it, bipartisan. It's at the finish line right now. We can't get the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, to schedule it for a vote.
Wow.
And so nothing is happening with all of this. What do you have to say about Kamala Harris? Anything you want to add about her? Because I just can't believe this is the woman representing all of us. I really can't as a woman. I just can't. It's
I,
unacceptable.
I think she's very smart. I think a lot of people, especially in conservative circles, tend to downplay her string sentence. If you notice, when you're not telling the truth to your friends or you're trying to weave a story that's not true, you start tripping on your words and you start repeating the same thing what you memorized. That's what I think is happening. She can't tell the truth of who she is, but she has to portray to be likable, be friendly, be tough, be moderate. So that's why we see her stumbling. But I think she's a very passionate woman. She didn't climb to the top being nice or being foolish. She knows exactly what she's going to do. And what she's going to do is a precursor, and you can view it here in California. She was our senator. She was the attorney general. You will have America will be a sanctuary country. Nobody's going to get deported. She will demolish ICE, not abolish ICE, which means is just to passively defund it. Just be transporters of women and children, and just be feeding them and clothing them and detain them. We will have mass catch and release. We will see 10 million more people enter the United States because the industries that fund her sponsors, they want more young people. They see the demographics. The teachers unions, they want and they need the students, because so many people pulled out their kids, the ones who could, from public schools. They need new kids, and American women aren't having that many children. So it's like, bring in the migrants. That's why you see them supporting her here in California and funding her so much. So I feel like, just on the border issue, she's going to try to downplay it initially, but she's just going to continue a lot of it. Remain in Mexico will remain abolished. ICE will be demolished. We will have a sanctuary country throughout the 50 states. Nobody's going to get deported because she gets blowback from the Latinos and the Black community and the Muslims if you do that. What she is going to focus on are those of us who have a religious faith, those of us who are speaking out against her narrative. We will be called out for being racist if we attack it. So she's very good at that. She's very good at antagonizing people, us against them. So I think as women, we understand that kind of woman. We're very good at that. Like, oh, I don't play with you.
Right.
We're very catty. And I feel she's going to divide America even more than Obama, because she's going to be able to, because she's a very good looking, attractive woman of color. It's tough for anybody to oppose her, let alone the Republican.
But I think what you were saying about Kamala is she's a mean girl. I think she's a mean girl. And I think most women, this is terrible, are mean girls. I don't know. A lot of them are, but I'm convinced, we've got to empower our girls and our young women not to be this way. And there is some good news that the alpha generation, I don't know if you heard this, Esther, born in 2010 forward, which means they're still babies, they're 14 or younger.
Mm-hmm.
They are rejecting, we have a brand new study, they're rejecting more phones and online and all of that stuff. And they're getting back to reading, an actual book.
Mm-hmm.
So these are very, I'm digressing here with the whole thing, but I'm looking for like positive little nuggets of sharing some stuff. And I thought when this report came out fairly recently, this is great news. And also there was a new study put out by partners of ours, Parents Television and Media Council, that teenagers are looking for programming now. It was like 63% in the study that are showing, because a lot of shows are so sexual in nature, even animation now is very sexual, that even when they say, for instance, on Netflix has a bunch of shows, they say for adults, but the characters in it are actually portraying teenagers, so of course kids are going to be watching it. But this new study says the kids are really looking for, they want to see families in shows. They want to see relationships in shows and things like that. They don't want to see this violence, this sex. So I'm seeing the pendulum, as far as all this goes, swinging back a little bit, a little tiny bit. And we have to take anything we can get and push that forward and really work about this, all of this predation, whether it be, online, real time. I'm very concerned. We bring millions and millions of people here, Esther, and we're not properly caring for them, the girls and the women, right? The cartels are still, keeping them in this debt bondage, forced into sex trafficking. We have the reports. They're here in New York. And I've been hearing it anyway before we got the reports. And also the largest demo right now for sex trafficking in the United States is, boys. And nobody's talking, nobody's talking about that at all. And I'm hoping, and this is kind of a stretch. I've been doing a lot of media. I've been approached, obviously about Sean Combs. I call him Dirty Diddy because that's what I think he is. But I'm using that if we talk about males and we talk about, I'm trying to flip it, kind of thing, because we always heard, being in New York, that it was really about males and like a sex trafficking ring, but that remains to be seen. We don't know yet. We don't have the proof with that. But I'm very concerned that these kids are coming here and it's a mess. Our American children are seeing all of this. And then we have such hardworking, good people just trying to, pay the bills and pay the rent or mortgage. What do you suggest to everybody? I want everybody to take a breath, to keep their cool, because the one thing I get all the time is, Lynn, how do you do it? That's number one. And number two, I can't do anything. That, not me. They'll say like, I don't know what to do. I can't do anything anyway. What are your expert suggestions for people? We'll finish up with that because I believe everybody can do a little bit of something within your own little home or circle that'll snowball and really create change. That's what I believe.
Yeah, and thank you for ending on a high note because there is hope. I was raised in Section 8 housing in an impoverished immigrant community. You do get out. And the way for my family, it was through education and through our faith community. And if anybody's listening right now, I mean, there's poll after poll showing that the younger generation, especially the men, they're going to church more. They're more faith-based than even the young women. So if you have a family, start having the family dinners. Start having people over like we used to. That's how our family got assimilated into American culture. Somebody invited us over, taught my mom how to make a turkey dinner. I went to school. I told my family, this is what Thanksgiving's about. It comes down to us. There's so many things that we can do. Get involved at your synagogue, at your church, at your community center. Start giving. Be generous. Start inviting people over.
Yes.
Start participating. You don't have to listen to podcasts and watch the news. You can make a huge impact where you are. And if you do get overwhelmed, start praying, start meditating, start thinking about, wow, I am so grateful for what I have. I want to plan forward, not just for my country, that's so macro, but on the micro level, I can make a change right now. And we are. I think the fact that so many young people are going to church more, they want faith, they want stability, they want tradition, going off on their point, they want family values. Why? Because it fills them with hope. And those are places of love. Those are places of worship. Everybody fundamentally wants to be loved. We don't want to be the angry warriors. We want to be the loving warriors. And when you love something, and that we focus on. I love my clients. I love the fact that they brought their children over and they said, no more. I'm going to fight it over here. I love telling young men, it's like, hey, in this country, we don't beat women. We love women and we treat children with respect. That's something new that they don't necessarily have in their culture. Just being able to share those nuggets of, hey, this is what America is about, and we all represent America from every walk of life. So I think there's power in being a volunteer as well. So it's not all negative, but I think gone are the days of the politicians making the change. We are the change. We get to move the Overton window.
I love that. And I love your passion, Esther. I love it. I love it. I love it. Our hashtag, but our hashtag at the Warriors is community creates change. Because I kept saying it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to claim ownership and call it the Warriors hashtag now. Community truly creates change. So while you work with, God bless you, and the work you do and with your clients and being out in California and border and going on various media outlets to talk about it, always giving us the facts and the reality, not sugarcoating it, which people need. People need to hear the truth about what's happening and your boots on the ground. So Esther Valdes Clayton, you really are a warrior. I'm going to have this video all fancied up with your Twitter in it and things like that. And I just want to thank you. Thank you for your willingness to take time to explain what is happening. And I think there's so much hope, as you pointed out, and so much goodness. And everybody has to remember that every single day. We're still the luckiest country in the world. We still have so much more as women, right, than other countries have. Their poor women and girls, the way they're treated. And thank you, thank you, thank you for always just being the warrior that you are. Esther, please let us speak again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And again, thank you. And I hope that regardless of who wins on Tuesday, I hope you get a place at the table because we got to work with both sides, both political parties to effectuate the change. We can't depend on them anymore. The change is us.
I'm just going to leave it on that note. The change is us. Okay, Esther. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Take good
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Lynn.